I would like to first say a word of welcome to all who are virtually joining us this morning. I apologize for not greeting you at the beginning of Mass. I know there are many people who tune into the beautiful Catholic liturgies. And for those of you who have chosen Mary Queen on this Easter Sunday, let me just say, you have chosen the better part. My brothers and sisters, I promise you that when I was in the homiletics course, as every priest, seminarian, and deacon has to take, there's a formula which is imprinted in our minds. And it is a little formula with the letter B. And the formula is that there are 3 B's to every homily that is ever preached. Be brief. Be to the point. And be gone. But I must confess I flunked that course. But I will leave you with 3 other very important qualities that I hope define us, that I hope inspire us, that I hope fill us with joy. They are the qualities of an Easter people. My brothers and sisters, as we listen to the gospel, the first thing that leaps off the pages is that we are expected to be amazed. We are expected to be surprised. That we are on this day and all of our forebears in faith, people of awe and wonder, perhaps even overwhelmed. We have to stop and think that our attitude, that our expectation, that our identity on this Easter morning must be changed and transformed. And change is external, and we can always endure change. But we are also expected to be transformed. Something new, something different, something totally radical about our lives must happen through Easter. The followers of Jesus, on this first Easter morning, Mary of Magdala, Peter, and the beloved disciple were not expecting any change whatsoever. They were not expecting anything different than a sealed tomb and a dead Messiah. And yet what happened to them? They went, and only one of them, as recorded by the gospel, peered into that tomb and believed. And when we believe, we are transformed. How disappointing, in one sense, it must have been to the risen Jesus. How many times would he, over the next 50 days, have to appear in a multitude of apparitions, in a multitude of dinners, in a multitude of encounters with the apostles and the disciples, with the loved and the beloved, to convince them that it really was the risen Lord, that it really was a miracle beyond belief, that it was something that was totally unexpected because it had never happened in human nature before. And it took Jesus so many apparitions, so many attempts to convince them. On the road to Emmaus with the 2 disciples, a distance of about 7 miles from Jerusalem, he walked the complete 7 miles to convince those 2 disciples that it wasn't over, that it had just begun. He went to the small villages, he went to the upper room where they were in awe and in trepidation. He went to Thomas, and we know the story of Thomas. He appeared to the 500, as it is told in the Acts of the Apostles. This very same Jesus who walked the pathways of Galilee and the streets of Jerusalem now was assuring them and us that he would walk with us forever, that he would be powerfully and fully present to us. In forgiveness, if that's what we need, in conviction, if we still doubt, in a promise to answer our prayers, if we're still unsure. He has promised that, and he fulfills that. And the quality, the essence of what we show in respect to that is that we must always be surprised by joy. We must always be open to the miracle of the risen Lord in our lives. It took him 50 days, according to the Acts of the Apostles. And you add to that the 3 years of his ministry and those 3 precious hours on the cross, and 50 days. And now for over 2,000 years, we are a believing people. But are we surprised? Are we thrilled? Are we in awe and wonder? That is the sign of the Christian people. That is the sign that we give to others, that not only do we believe, but through us we give you every reason to believe and to come with us. The second thing I want to leave you with this morning is to cherish your baptism. Do you remember when it happened? Do you know who it was that baptized you? The priest, the deacon, the bishop, the pope. Do you remember the day? Do you remember the church? Do you remember the scene? I have a little exercise that I like to do with very, very few people. People that I baptized. I'm not sure he's present, but there's a young man in this parish. He's 12 years old. And every time I see him and his parents, there are only 2 words spoken. I say, "Who?" And he says, "You." I say, "Who?" And he says, "You." And he will never forget, not Father Skip, he will never forget who it was that baptized him. I invite you all to let someone say who, and you say who it was and when it was. Because that moment, that act, that sacrament, that grace was perhaps the greatest moment when we understood what it means to be transformed. Any action that in one fell swoop, God's hand washes away our every sin, adopts us as God's son or daughter, enrolls us in a gospel community, and grants us on earth a title to heaven, is something never to forget, but to treasure. But we must keep our baptism alive by nourishing us with Eucharist and healing us with reconciliation. Not for our salvation, for that has already been reassured, but for the salvation of the whole world, which now we are the ones to surprise and amaze and testify. And finally, I'll leave you with a cute little story, perhaps at the heart of what our witness and our testimony is really all about. And it goes like this. A rabbi once gathered his students around him at the very earliest hour of the morning, while it was still dark, and he asked them this question: how can you tell when the night has ended and the day has begun? One of his students answered, maybe it's when you see an animal and you can distinguish whether it is a sheep or a dog. No, the rabbi said. A second student answered, maybe it's when you're looking at a tree in the distance and you can tell whether it's a fig tree or a peach tree. No, the rabbi said. And after a few more guesses, his students demanded an answer of him. And the rabbi replied in this sentence, it's when you look at the face of any woman or man and you can see that she is your sister and that he is your brother. If you can do this, no matter what time of day it is still night and you are still reborn. My brothers and sisters, this story tells us that we are about baptism, that we are about witness, that we are to make God's message known to the powerful, the rich, the famous, the poor, the disenfranchised, the forgotten. That we are never to disregard the moment that we can bring God's joy, God's healing, and God's surprise to others. And St. Paul will title us, we are the foolish of the world, for we reach out to the weak, the lowly, and the despised. No matter what time of day it is, when you look, night, day, midday, early morning, when you look at your brother and sister and know you are bonded with them, with the risen Lord, then you are a Christian and a follower of the risen Lord. Happy Easter to all of you.